You know, for years, I wanted my iPad Pro to replace my MacBook Pro. Every time Apple announced a new iPad, every time a new version of iPad OS came out, every time a new app was released, I found myself asking the same questions as I'm sure all of y'all do too. Can this finally replace my laptop? And honestly, I think I've been asking the wrong question, because after using the iPad Pro for a while now, and I've owned almost every single generation of iPad, I've come to realize something. I don't think the iPad Pro was supposed to replace my MacBook Pro. I think it was supposed to work with it. And once I stopped trying to force myself to use just one device to do everything, my workflow got so much better. One thing that's important to understand is that this wasn't some big realization that happened overnight. There wasn't a moment where I suddenly thought, aha, I figured it all out. It happened gradually. The iPad kept getting better and better. The apps kept getting better and better. The workflows kept getting better. And while I still think we're probably a few years away from editing first, because this is probably the area where I prefer the iPad the most. I've edited photos in Lightroom on a computer for years, but once I started using Lightroom for the iPad with the Apple Pencil, something just clicked. Honestly, this feels like how Lightroom should have always worked. Instead of using a mouse to drag the sliders around, I'm using the Apple Pencil. Instead of zooming with the keyboard shortcuts, I'm grabbing the image with my fingers, pinching and zooming in and out to the areas that I want to work on. If I need to remove an object, I can use the Apple Pencil for precise adjustments. The whole experience just feels more natural, more direct, more connected to the image. And because it's an iPad, I can sit on the couch, I can sit at a coffee shop, I can edit while I'm at work, or wherever I want to edit photos comfortably. It's one of those situations where the touch interface actually makes the experience so much better. Where things really changed for me, though, was video editing, and that was with DaVinci Resolve Cloud. I use it pretty much every time I make a video, and here's what my workflow looks like. When I get home from filming, or when I get done filming talking head setup like this, I sit down at my desk, I take my SD cards out, I drag all my footage to the correct folders that I have set up. Then I open DaVinci Resolve on my MacBook, I create a new project. One important thing that I always do is I select sync proxies only to the cloud. That's just so, I think I have like 500 gigabytes on the cloud, and I'm only using a small fraction of that by doing proxies only. Then I organize all my footage into the correct folders and bins inside DaVinci Resolve, and that's when the magic starts happening. DaVinci Resolve automatically creating proxy files. These files are much smaller than the original footage, like I mentioned just a second ago, which means uploads happen faster, syncing between the devices is faster, it's incredibly smooth. Once everything is uploaded, and you can look down at the bottom right hand at the cloud and see it uploading. Once everything is uploaded, I can start editing right there on my MacBook. But then what happens if I want to leave? And then I want to go to a coffee shop, or I have to go to work, and maybe I'm on my lunch break at work. Maybe I'm just sitting somewhere else in the house. I grab my iPad Pro and I keep editing. The project's already there. The timeline is already there. The edits are already there. Everything just syncs. Then when I get home, I open up the project on my MacBook and continue right where I left off. It's honestly one of my favorite parts of my workflow. And this is where I think a lot of people misunderstand the iPad. They focus on whether it can replace my laptop or my desktop. I focus on whether it can make my workflow better. My MacBook Pro rarely leaves my desk. It's mounted up underneath and everything's docked into it. It's my workstation. It's where I do the heavy lifting. It's where I handle more demanding fusion work. It's where I finish larger edits. Could I do some of that on the iPad? Sure. I've done fusion work on the iPad before, but it's usually faster and easier on my MacBook Pro. It's just more powerful of a device. It's got more RAM, more memory, all that good stuff. And that's okay. Not every tool has to do everything. The iPad shines in a completely different way. Mine is cellular, which means I don't have to hunt for Wi-Fi. I don't have to think about hotspots. I can just grab it and go. While I'm away from my desk, I'm constantly using apps like Notion. Every video idea I have goes into Notion. Every project gets organized there. And because everything syncs automatically, I capture ideas from my phone to my iPad or my MacBook. They're all connected. And I think that's the lesson I've learned from all this. For years, I was asking, which device should I use? Now I'm asking, how can these devices work together? And honestly, that's the same lesson I've learned as a creator. It's not about finding one perfect camera. It's not about finding one perfect lens. It's not about finding one perfect drone, one perfect light, one perfect piece of software. The goal isn't replacing tools. The goal is building a workflow, a system where every tool does what it does best. And when I finally stopped trying to make my iPad Pro replace my MacBook Pro, I realized it was actually making my MacBook Pro better. And that's when everything just clicked. So I hope you got something out of this. If you did, leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.